Hi there, and thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast. We feature those who are in the process of overcoming or have overcome any type of life encounter, life obstacle that at the time seemed to be almost insurmountable. With this podcast, we have three objectives in mind. Our first objective is we want you to know with a confident resolve you are not alone. We want to work with you. We want you to know there are others who are working with you, who want to help you through whatever you are encountering, and together we will get through whatever you're experiencing.
Our second objective is there are multiple options for any life encounter you are facing. We want to help you develop a resolve that there are various options and solutions to any life dilemma.
Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you're encountering something that was possibly a decision you made sometime in the past, and if you had the opportunity for a life redo, you would make a different decision. We want to help you with those critical thinking skills that can help you make an informed decision and not encounter what you're going through at the moment. We are the Cooper Culture, a veteran-owned business. We work with business personnel and families to develop and sustain connected relationship cultures within their families and organizations. That type organization is one where people feel wanted, appreciated, and genuinely a part of that organization. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty, who is helping me facilitate this podcast. Today we feature Dana Diaz, who chronicles her life of abuse from her father, the toxicity of that relationship, which led to, and it's a bit ironic, but it's somewhat of a pattern of behavior leading to marrying a man that was like her father. The toxicity of that relationship that started with her father, carried into her marriage, resulted in degradation of her health, her autoimmune system, stress. She chronicles the way things used to be, but more importantly, how she took care of those items, how she recovered from, and is now leading a good and better life in spite of being married to a narcissist. Marty, what are some takeaways our listeners can gain from Dana?
Listening to her story, I'm just amazed that she is as strong as she is now. She went through a lot, but she's in a happy place now. Through hard work and determination, that's where she is. And it's good to hear that she's happily married to someone that loves her the way God wants a man to love a wife and encourage. It's an amazing story, and one of you can do it. You can make it if you're as strong as she was.
It's a great story of triumph, and her Lord brought her through a lot of very troubling times into a great life. Let's listen and learn together. Dana, great to have you with us. Our listeners are going to be very intrigued with your background. You have come a long ways. You've got a background that you have overcome, and that's a lot of what our podcast is about. And Dana, our listening audience is going to be very interested in knowing, we don't dwell on the past, but just enough of past to know, yep, I can identify with what she described. And our listeners are going to be very interested in knowing just how you overcame your past. And for the listener who may be going through the same thing, just how they can, based on your experience, your tenacious behavior, how they might be able to do the same thing. Dana, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, I am sure that everybody can relate in some way to some part of my story. I'm one of those people, I always say that if it has happened to somebody, it's probably happened to me. So I'm sure there's many stories I could tell, but definitely the past does shape who we are and how we present in the world and how we react to life. And, so it is about being consciously aware of that and making the better choices for our future.
So, Dana, you mentioned the term, it does shape your past, but I'm guessing you would say, yes, your past, it shaped you, it formed a mental impression and so forth, but it doesn't define you. And that is, I'm guessing nothing has kept you down. Now, in spite of your past, you've got a great smile, and I think
Thank you.
you have a just a brilliant future. But can you describe to our listeners a little bit, kind of a top level of what it is the past used to be, and then we're going to emphasize how did you get over that to in the now and moving forward?
Absolutely. The first 45 years of my life was not the most fun, not most of the time at least. Before I was even born, I just felt like the odds were against me. I was born to an unwed teenage mother back in the 70s when it was not okay for a girl to have a baby out of wedlock and that young. And she didn't want me, and I don't think she wanted any children because she actually had her tubes tied immediately after I was born. So there was always some sense of emotional and even some physical distance. She just always was distanced from me in that way, detached. She ended up getting married to a man who, I mean, king of all narcissists, very self-absorbed, very worried about people praising him and exalting him for what he had and who he was. But unfortunately, he was abusive. He physically and verbally abused me. Mother turned her head and let it happen, and even, told me that I was lying about the things that I was going through. But, the physical part of it, I hate to say it was bad, but I could get over that. Bruises heal, scratches heal, handprints go away. But the verbal, he would tell me almost every day, nobody ever wanted you. Nobody loves you. You're a burden. I shouldn't have to pay for another man's child. It went on and on and on. Left the home when I was 18. Obviously, I was not trying to stick around for that because I knew something in me told me this was not right. I didn't deserve to be treated that way. But if my mother and father didn't want me, then I move on, right? Well, unfortunately, I fell for, as is unfortunate and common, I fell for another abusive narcissist who I spent the next 25 years of my life with. There were good times and bad times, but more bad than good. We had a child. I endured multiple abuses and domestic violence in that marriage. And that marriage even made me physically ill. The chronic stress of living in that situation actually caused me to have so much of the stress hormone cortisol run through me that Mayo Clinic ended up diagnosing me with autoimmunity and a rare lung disease that I ended up on an oxygen machine. I had dwindled down to 93 pounds. I could barely tear toilet paper off the roll. So we ended that marriage. I cut contact with my mother and stepfather all back in 2020. So it was a very difficult thing because you're mourning the death of not just the relationships, but of the people, and they're still alive. And your husband and your mother and the man who raised you, whether biological or not, those are the people that anybody should hope should be for you. If nobody else in this world is on your side in anything, those should be the people. But I lost all of that all in one fell swoop. But the happy part of this is that immediately after cutting this toxicity out of my life, I miraculously started to become healthier physically. I mean, I didn't need my oxygen machine anymore to breathe. I started to gain back the weight, because 93 pounds, looks great in a bikini, but let's be real, it's not realistic for a 40-some-year-old woman. I was skeletal. I started to gain weight and look like a human being again, to where people weren't scared when they saw me. I felt better. That all these couple dozen symptoms that I was experiencing, from numbing hands to, there were vision issues, blackouts, heart issues, muscular issues, they all went away. They all went away because I wasn't living under this chronic stress. And in the meantime, I'm self-employed, trying to run businesses, and that obviously got better because I was feeling better. And then when your physical health is better, naturally your mental health gets better as well. So naturally, just all these things tended to come together because I kind of had to come to the realization, I don't want anyone to think it's easy to just cut people out of your life, especially a divorce. I never thought I would get divorced. I didn't get married to get divorced. And I never in a million years would have thought my mother wouldn't be in my life despite our strained relationship. It takes so much courage to come to the realization that who you surround yourself with and the situations you put yourself in really do contribute to how you show up in this world. And when I was constantly surrounded by this negativity of being told I can't, I won't, I never, all these things that kept me down, yes, I was buying into it in a way because it was creating this sense of, okay, I never will. I must be doomed to, whatever decisions other people have made about me. But really, that wasn't true. But once I started putting myself in situations where I was around positive people, people that encouraged and uplifted. I was going to church and, being uplifted there. I'm being choosier about even, I hate to say, family and friends that I'm spending the bulk of my time with. That positivity started to get contagious, and I'm smiling more, I'm happier, but it spreads into my business, it spreads into everything I do, how I am as a mother to my son, how I am in friendships. I'm remarried now, and strangely, despite all the things I've been through in my life that certainly caused me depression and anxiety and PTSD and all these things, I'm actually in a pretty healthy relationship that I'd never thought. I didn't think it was possible, because so many of us that come out of these, terrible pasts say, "Oh, we're broken, we're damaged." And I don't like that verbiage, because I'm not broken and damaged. I learned that I was carrying the burden of other people's unhealed trauma
Mhm.
because they couldn't face it. So they put it on me. They put all that shame and all that ridicule and all these terrible things they didn't want to acknowledge for themselves. They put it on me to carry that burden. And so once I released them and released all that, it just made me lighter mentally, physically, all around. And it's so much nicer. Yes, there's things, there's still those, bouts of anxiety where I'm a little hyper vigilant, because especially in my previous marriage, when you have violence and physical assault on you, you tend not to trust people, and you're cautious about where you are, your environment, the people in that environment. But it gets better and better. Like I said, just choosing who you surround yourself with, and just having that perspective, that positive perspective, not just in the people that are around me, but for myself. Because negative people bring you down and positive people bring you up. And that's just the simple fact of it.
Dana, you're an expert in narcissism and
Mm.
everything about it. My perception of listening to you and reading some and listening to others, I want to see if my perception is accurate. The narcissist knows exactly how to manipulate you. They know your vulnerabilities. They know how to affect your mind. They know your weak areas. I know, it says the narcissist, how to exploit all of that. And it
Yes.
seems, even though you were, I think you were saying, nearly 45 years of that, you maybe had a focus. That's what I don't want to be, don't want to have. I'm curious, were you focused almost exclusively on what I don't want, such that maybe that actually had the unintended consequence of marrying into what you didn't want? I'm not even sure I'm asking the right questions, Dana. I'm not even, it may take you 3 hours to respond to what I was just asking.
We could talk for hours about this, or at least I could. No, I know where you're going with this, because absolutely, when I left, I was, for years in my childhood, I would say certainly by 11, 12 years old. I mean, if I could have gotten, an attorney to get me emancipated and be free and out in the world without my mother and stepfather, I would have done it in a heartbeat. But when you're a child, you're kind of stuck in your situation, unfortunately. So I was ready to go. I mean, my 18th birthday, I walked out. See you later. Goodbye. I had to come back a little bit because it's a nice idea, but you realize you need money for places to put your head down at night and things like that. But I tried to stay there as minimally as possible. But no, the last thing I was going to do was marry somebody who mistreated me. But what you described as a narcissist is 100%. These are con men. I've talked so many times to people about, I think people think that, I went out on the street and saw Chucky in a striped sweater with disheveled hair and a butcher knife and like thought, oh, let's go out on a date. No, narcissists don't look like that. They are in our churches, in our schools, in the communities, they're political leaders, they're coaching, little league. They are nice people in the world. They come off very charming. They're funny. They're very generous and charitable, even. Who wouldn't be attracted to somebody like that? They come off very kind. But yes, they are master manipulators. They can just read you in a second and know exactly how to push your buttons to get you to do what they want you to do, because everything they want you to do is somehow going to serve them and fulfill their ego. And I can get into the deep-seated insecurity they all have, and that's why they need this constant praise and admiration, because they don't feel that way about themselves despite how they, present themselves to others. But yeah, I didn't like my ex-husband. The second I met him, he reminded me very much of my stepfather. But then he showed me this other side. And I thought, oh, I see the house and the white picket fence. And the strange thing was, and I will admit this now looking back, I met his parents very early on. I think within a week of meeting him, they were the loveliest people. I wished they were my parents. And I think I fell in love with his parents more than I fell in love with him because I didn't have parents like that. So it was, when you're young, you just make dumb decisions sometimes and it leads you into these situations. But by the time we got to our wedding, I remember the wedding march playing, and here I'm supposed to enter in and go down the aisle and marry this man. And I started to panic because I knew deep down this wasn't what I wanted. So, the one thing that I tell people, people ask me about red flags and all these things all the time. It's not so much about red flags, it's about listening to your gut. Because if I had listened to my gut, I'd have never gone out on a date with him. I certainly would have married him, even if I got to that point. When I heard that wedding march and panicked and knew in my head that there was no way I wanted to marry him, I should have just stopped there and not put either one of us in that situation. And then on top of it, I love my son and I would never not want him in this world. But I think so many of us try so hard, particularly in romantic situations. We enable, we excuse, we tolerate because we want so badly for it to work. And for me, there are people that, come out of childhoods like mine and they get addicted to drugs or alcohol. I kind of got addicted to love. I just wanted love. I wanted somebody to see some value and some worth in me because, talk about insecure. I didn't see it in myself. I definitely was a very precocious and tenacious young girl, but there's something about that verbal, that record in my head that replayed over and over all the things my stepfather said. So I was always looking to please others and get others' approval, but it's because I wanted the love. And I got that sometimes, and then other times I didn't, but I knew how to get it, just like he knew how to play me. I hate to say it, but I knew, kind of like a dog knows what to do to get a treat. I knew what to do to get those little doses of love I needed. So it almost was like setting up a perfect storm in a way.
I'm totally intrigued with everything you're saying, Dana. And Marty has a question, but Marty,
Yes.
But you stayed with him for 25 years? Now, explain to the audience why did you stay, and that may be helping a woman understand why she's staying.
I think even in the best marriages, We all have moments, and everybody stays for the same basic reasons. You didn't get married to get divorced, so you try. You try to make it work. You try to acknowledge what you can do. If I do this, then they have to react differently. Maybe I can change him. I mean, I even thought involving him more in my church, taking him, we'd volunteer together. And that's the thing. He was this awful person at home, but I could take him to the soup kitchen and we'd serve dinner to the homeless, and everybody thought he was this great person. And I also thought with time, I mean, I was 19 and he was 21 when we met. I thought maybe he won't be a frat boy when he's 40, or hopefully by 30. I thought maybe when we had our child, he'd grow up a little bit. You just think all these things. And then once you have a child, you don't want to break up that family unit. I mean, there's a million reasons people stay. It's not that easy to walk out. But a lot of it was specifically with narcissism, a lot of it is what we were just talking about, that lure. They know how to push your buttons, and part of pushing your buttons is they know when those bad times happen, when they're abusive, they know how to love you or make you feel loved and feel secure. And in a strange way, I wish I could explain better, you feel safe with them and staying in the relationship so that you're okay. Okay, it happened. He says he won't do it again. He promises to do better next time. He promises, all these promises, and you have to take it for what it is, because when you're married and have a kid, and then as time goes by and you have this investment of time and your families are intertwined and you have a house and you have the dogs and the cats, and we had a farm, so we had cows, pigs, we had a life, and you don't just dismantle that when somebody is saying they're sorry and saying it'll never happen again. You want to give them that chance. And I always say it was this waiting and wishing and hoping and praying, and then it just was this constant cycle. At some point I just realized he's full of it. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I felt like probably too long, but I had to try, because
Mhm.
even now, I mean, minus the violence, I mean, are we all going to be blissfully happy and feel the butterflies and all that for years? No, but you hope to establish a friendship, that carries on into old age, to where you could be sitting on the porch in rocking chairs or in the living room in recliners, and still be with the person you married and still have love between you. But with us, with a narcissist, it's love hate, and the hate's really bad, but boy, that love is really good. So it's complicated, but they call it a trauma bond in narcissist world. And that's essentially why you stay, because you have been through all this stuff with this person, but they have you convinced that they love you, and they know how you feel love, so they do those things or say those things or whatever it is, so that you stay, so that you feel bound to them.
Thank you so much for that. You
Yeah.
made a statement earlier. You have to come to the point where you know that you're not the problem, they are. They have the problem, you don't. How do you reach that point?
I think we just have to be honest with ourselves, because, the other part of it is, am I an angel? I mean, I'd like to think I am. But,
You're
it
beautiful.
takes, oh,
You're
thank you.
beautiful.
Thank
You're a
you. I
beautiful
need to
angel.
straighten my halo out, though. But, it takes two people to create a dynamic. And he and I were like oil and water. Because in the beginning, when there was mistreatment, oh, I stood up for myself. I said what, because there was no way this man was going to plow me over like my stepfather did. Not going to happen. But by the end of that 25 years, you know what? I was submissive and I was quiet. And I just said and did, or didn't say or do, whatever I had to keep peace for myself and for our son, and just not to provoke him. It's a terrible cycle to be in. But I think so many people, you just have to decide in your, I always tell people, follow your gut, whether it's deciding to go on that first date with that person, or deciding to go on the 10th date, or deciding to marry them, or deciding to stay, you have to go with your gut. I never, ever, I promise you, I never wanted to get divorced. I would have stayed in that marriage and not even necessarily been happy, just lived our lives together if things had been different. But when I got sick, for me, that was kind of the breaking point. But everybody has that thing, that deal breaker. That's a line that cannot be crossed again, because I mean, here I was perfectly healthy. I coached cross country for 9 years. I ran 5 miles every morning. I'm one of those weirdos that, eats apples and vegetables and, I'm very healthy. So it didn't make sense when I got sick. And when the doctor sat me down at the end of 2019 and said, your body is shutting down, you are alive, but all of your organ systems, everything in you is shutting down and at minimal survival rates. He said my body was acting sort of as a generator just to keep my heart beating and my lungs breathing. But he said, your body has basically, it's dying. It felt like it. I was dead inside. It was hard physically to trudge through each day, but mentally, I was never suicidal, but I didn't want to live anymore. That was not life what I was living. And when it got to that point, after the doctor said that, I just, I thought about my son. I thought about life in general, and that it just had taken such a big left turn for me. When I was young, I went to college. I got my degree in journalism and psychology because I thought I was going to be like the Barbara Walters of the world. And I'm going to save, I even thought about becoming an attorney. I'm going to save other children from the childhood I had. I'm going to save people. But that wasn't allowed, because when you're with narcissists, they don't allow a lot of things because they have to keep you in a cage. They cannot allow you to be out in the world. You can't experience joy. You can't even have friends. They separate you from family. They don't want you to be influenced. He didn't even like me going on the internet. I couldn't read. I didn't even have a smartphone until after our divorce because God forbid I had anyone influence me. He moved us to a little podunk small town where I had nothing and nobody except for him, and it served him well. But once I was out, it was a little different, and I said, okay, I'm going to use my degree and I'm going to use my voice, and now I'm going to help people, because after what I've been through, I truly believe somehow life came full circle for me, that I had that education and I was given these talents. And I was given, I hate to say, sort of the honor of having to go through all of what I did and surviving it all and triumphing, so that I could come on the other side and say to everybody else who's still in the muck of a situation like that, hey, I got out. I'm okay. A little scratched up and bruised up inside and out, but it's okay. So let me reach down and help you get out of there. Let me pull you out of there. For me, to just finish answering your question, the point I came to when I got sick, I think that's when I realized, it took me, unfortunately, 25 years, but I realized that as much as I thought he was restricting me and he was holding me, I always say I felt like I was on a leash. I was the one that put the collar on. I had allowed it to happen. And no, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, because believe me, domestic violence is no joke and abuse is no joke, but you can get out of it. You can choose differently for yourself. And my life has completely shifted. And I was 45 years old coming out of that marriage and coming out of that situation. And a lot of people thought, oh, you wasted your life. Your life is over. No, my life just started when I left there. And I am much better now. I'm physically, mentally better. I am remarried to somebody whose family I've known 16 years, and I've known him a long time. And having a marriage that is built on a friendship, and there's a trust already. He respects me and he likes me, and I'm not used to these things, but we have such a deep love and care for each other, and it's a beautiful marriage. But it just makes me that much better, and he makes me want to be a better person, and I help him, teach him things. And that's what a marriage is supposed to be, or any partnership. And so it just makes us better people out in the world, better parents to our kids, better people at work, in the community. It's beautiful. But no matter what situation anyone is in, they just have to realize that they are the ones that have the power to determine their future. And it can change. It can be different.
That's great.
Let's unpack just a little bit more in the remaining time we have. You said trust your gut, trust your instinct, trust your intuition. And I certainly support that, Dana. I want to get your perception, however, in that context. Did you feel that he had, I'm going to use the term, masked his narcissistic mannerisms with all the good, such that if you were to ever mention to somebody he's doing this kind of thing, he wants them to say, oh, he could never be that way because you're describing something negative, when he has projected something so positive to somebody else? It's a form of manipulation.
Yes.
That's a long answer, long question, Dana. How is it? I mean, I think what I'm asking you is, did you know, did you sense, did you feel, in spite of your intuition, this is not right, he might just seek retribution, and you feared for yourself?
I absolutely feared for myself. I tried to get an order of protection 3 different times, and when I was finally granted one, it was just that he had to stay 10 feet away from me. He could throw a 2x4 at me from 10 feet away, and or he could shoot me from 10, which he had tried. There was a gun incident, we had a knife incident, so it was scary, and there was and that's why in my last answer I had said, I understand it's not as easy to walk away because I was afraid. Again, knowing my weak spot, my son was my weak spot. I had said many times, I'm gonna be the best ex-wife ever. I don't care what you want. You want the house, you want all the money, you want all the car. You can have everything. You can have the clothes on my back. I just want my kid and I want to be done. The end. I can make more money. I can replace things. I can buy things. There's so many resources. I was not going to go without shelter or food or, there's resources out there. I didn't care. I just wanted out and wanted my kid. So what did he do? He threatened over and over to take my son away. He created a narrative in his family and in my family that I was an unfit mother, saying things about my stability and he actually lied and even told me to my face that he had told this lie and that lie, atrocious things, so that people in his family and mine would hate me. So let me tell you how awful it was, and I have since published a book about my experience in that relationship and after and what I endured. But what people don't see at the end of that book is, yes, I am better, life is good, but he had caused so many people to turn against me that even since the book has come out, even after going to court, even after police reports and threats, I have emails threatening my life. I have voicemail messages threatening my life after the divorce. People are telling me that I'm a liar. People are telling me exactly what you said. He would never do that. How could you do that to him? How could I do that to him? How could he do those things to me? I was his wife. I was his wife. Even afterward, wouldn't you care that the mother of your child be safe and secure? No, he wanted me to I have an email where he says he wants me dead because I offended him by divorcing him. It's scary, and people don't realize that despite all these wonderful things, one of the terrible pains that I have to live with in all this is the loss of all these people, many of whom are my own family and many of whom were my friends, very close friends, and his entire family. People at my son's school, people that, we live in the same town, that have turned against me because he would never do anything like that.
I'm sensing a very definite resolve in your voice now. You likely didn't have some number of years ago. I'm sensing a very positive aspect of you that you maybe and likely didn't have some number of years ago. I
Right.
want to ask you, and we're recording, but I want to ask you, would you consider at least one more episode, maybe other episodes? How did you turn this around from a person who was easily manipulated? That's my perception, to the
Yes.
person of resolve you are now. Our listeners need to know how many years, what did it take to turn the corner, so to speak, and become the person you are now? Because I'm just sensing who you are now is not even close to who you were. And our listeners need to know that because they might be under the domination of a narcissist right now and
Yeah.
they don't know how to turn the corner. Would you consider coming back for at least one more episode?
Oh, of course. I absolutely. There is so much to share, and I'm sure people will have lots of questions after this one, and I'm glad to answer them. But the one thing I will comment on, it's strange because no matter who you are, how well educated you are, or how strong you are, they find a way to overtake you and conquer you, and you give in because it's better than the consequence of not doing it. And so it's almost like a game. You have to kind of strategize and take chances, and it's not the way somebody should live, though. Your marriage, even your childhood with your parents, it shouldn't be a game of guessing what their next move is so you can determine yours. But that is essentially what a relationship with a narcissist is. So yes, let's delve into it a little bit more.
That
Absolutely.
that would be great. I would like one where you're cautious about another relationship. How do you look for someone and trust someone else and and
Yeah.
and, and get to a happier side of life?
Yes, we can definitely get into that. That is a big question. And a lot of that actually, I always turn things around because I think we have to be responsible and not always kind of focus on others, but it's about trusting ourselves because after, and I went through it just as most abuse victims do. When you've been in a situation like that, you do question your own decisions and your own judgments about people. You worry that you'll make that mistake again. And as much as I love my husband, that certainly was a factor. I thought, oh, is he another one? Is something going to happen? Is he a narcissist? How can I watch out for this? How can I make sure? Because I doubted myself. That is a very valid thing. But I do want people to know that no matter what they've been through, they don't have to go and hide and be alone like so many of us think we do. We are worthy of love and we are capable of having healthy relationships.
Right.
You just person.
We will follow up with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate having the opportunity to share our and our guests' life experiences with you.
The Cooper culture advances organizations to achieve and sustain high retention rates, connected communication, and trust through personality insights and principled leadership. You can contact us at our website, thecooperculture.com, and you can contact us directly at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, Marty, at thecooperculture.com. We work with you to help assess aspects of your culture to advance the environment and people to their best performance. We do that through our staff of certified personal performance coaches, leadership trainers, keynote speakers, and DISC personality behavior experts. You can book a speaking engagement directly through our website by contacting us at ron@thecooperculture.com. We look forward to sharing our life experiences with you, some of which are profound, some of which are pretty funny. Some of those life experiences are ones we'll never do that again because we've been through stuff. We truly look forward to working with you, speaking with you, helping advance you in any way that we can.